One of his many, he said, you can observe a lot by watching. You can observe a lot by watching this episode, because Harvey Araton wrote a wonderful book, Driving Mr. Yogi. And I was fortunate enough to pick it up right after the football season. It just kind of got me into the baseball season. So just before we introduce Harvey, just want to give you a little bit of a background in Harvey, and there's a tie-in with Staten Island. Harvey worked at the Staten Island Advance from 70 to 77, and he was a sports reporter, night sport editor. He was the city copywriter, did it all on the entry level. Then he went over to the Post. He was the beat reporter for the Knicks from 77 to 83. Then he bounced over to the Daily News, and 1991, he joined the New York Times. And he's a national basketball columnist for the New York Times since '91. And he wrote an article that the New York Times put on page A1. And what that is front page, not the sports, front page of the New York Times. That was the genesis, the springboard to the book that everyone is looking at. And we want to welcome in, and we want to thank Harvey Araton for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Harvey.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you for doing the show. And
honor to have you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Staten Island. Before we talk about the book, you grew up on Staten Island, and just tell us about your early days at the Staten Island Advance, if you will.
Well, I probably have never spiritually left Staten Island. I still feel like it's my hometown. And right out of high school, I was fortunate to land what was, sort of a gopher position. My first job was actually driving into New York and picking up, in those days, this was before high-speed wires and computers, and I would drive in every Saturday evening and pick up glossy photos at the AP building at Rockefeller Center, and then drive them back to the island, and then I would stay till midnight and wrap the old ticker tapes for the in the sports section, and slowly, year after year, started doing some, high school coverage, and wound up with a full-time job right after college, where I worked for another couple of years.
Wow. Harvey, when we read the Staten Island Advance, on Staten Island, it's kind of like as big as the Times, the Daily News, Post, maybe bigger. And one legendary local writer, his name is Jay Price, and I know you go back with him a long way. And we asked him if he would be good enough to call in. I know he's got a busy schedule, but he promised that he can call in for a couple of minutes. Jay Price, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Mike. How are you?
Jay, thank you for doing the show.
It's my pleasure. When I heard who your guest was, I just wanted to call in, and I have one question to ask. I want to know why the guards on the advanced basketball team didn't get the ball into the big men a little more often when they were about 40 years younger.
I can answer that very, very simply, Jay. And you know the truth is that Larry Ambrosino was a black hole. Once it went in, it was never coming out.
And still is, from what I hear. How you doing?
I'm good, Jay. It's good to hear your voice.
It's great to talk to you.
Jay, tell us about those basketball games. Who did you play against? And because we kind of, before we went on the air, we heard a couple of stories. It was pretty amazing.
Well, we were just a bunch of frustrated athletes ourselves, I guess. The guys writing sports at that time, and a bunch of us who were pretty young, once upon a time. And we started fooling around in the gym, and then the aforementioned Larry Ambrosino started booking us in to play the local school faculties at elementary schools and high schools, and somehow or other we wound up once or twice in the same gym with, in those days, the Jets and Giants and a couple of the baseball teams would have teams that would play the same sort of games in the off season, and a little bit of a lesson, I think, for some of us when we got in against real athletes like Mike Ciani and Willie Wilson in those days, the great outfielder for the Kansas City Royals, and realized why we were writing and why they were playing. But it was still fun.
Jay, let me ask you, we put up a very nice graphic of you and when you were on the football field at New Dorp with your book, Thanksgiving 1959, so we're going to ask you about that in a moment. But when Harvey started working at the Staten Island Advance. Did you see big things for him in his future?
Well, I'll be honest and say I wasn't smart enough to know who had big things in their future or not. But right from the beginning, Harvey was a talented guy, and it's no accident that he is where he is. And the thing I like best about it, having known him then, is how much he has grown since that time. And I think what separates him from a lot of people who call themselves sports writers these days is that he has those sensibilities and that perspective that he applies to whatever it is that he's covering. And as much as of a pleasure it is to talk to you and Anthony, I'm just glad to have an opportunity to join the chorus in saying what a great job he did and what a fun read Driving Mr. Yogi is, because it really is something special.
Well said.
Very well said.
Thank you, Jay. I should point out that Jay really was my first mentor in the business. It's true. That's true. And really, I did not really understand what it meant to be a reporter until I worked alongside Jay. I also didn't know what it meant to actually get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to work until Jay told me to come in at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Jay, I drew a parallel between your book and Harvey's book because Harvey's revolves around Yogi Berra, so beloved, and yours, in a roundabout way, kind of revolves around Vince Lombardi indirectly because legendary Sal Soma, the Staten Island Noodle-Up coach. But there are some degrees of parallel there where you're writing about legendary, iconic figures, and both of you did a tremendous job on your books.
Well, that's
Jay,
really nice of you. I have to rebut Harvey in one sense. First of all, when you say somebody is your mentor, you're automatically aging them, which is never a good thing. But believe me, Harvey did not need anybody's help. He's done what he's accomplished on his own abilities and hard work. And I hate to even try to compare the two books. I just was so touched, and I think somebody else would have written Harvey's book very differently. But the fact that he took such an iconic figure as Yogi Berra, who everybody loves, but who let us see his frailties and realize that oftentimes he's that same cranky, needy old man that might be your grandfather or your uncle, and that the fact that he's a Yankee legend doesn't change that, to me just makes Yogi and the book all that more endearing. So I just think he did a tremendous job with that.
That's a great point.
Thank you, Jay.